Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 months, exploring the outer edge of what humans called the Kepler 442 system. Earth's government had sent them to look for new worlds that could support human life. Jake never expected to find anything more dangerous than empty space and dead rocks. "Commander, we're picking up multiple signals ahead," said Lieutenant Alex Chen from his position at the sensor station. His voice carried a hint of excitement. "They're artificial, sir. Definitely not natural." Jake felt his heart race. After 200 years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they might finally have their answer. "Put it on screen, Alex." The viewing screen flickered and changed. Instead of empty space, they now saw a fleet of ships unlike anything humans had ever built. The vessels were long and sleek, covered in blue metal that seemed to glow with its own light. There were at least 20 of them, arranged in a perfect formation that spoke of military discipline. "My God," whispered Captain Lisa Hayes, the ship's diplomatic officer. She had joined the mission, hoping to make peaceful contact with any alien life they might encounter. Now, faced with the reality of first contact, she felt both thrilled and terrified. "They're beautiful. They're also armed," Alex reported, studying his instruments. "I am reading energy signatures that look like weapon systems. Big ones." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Open a communication channel. All frequencies." The bridge fell silent as Lisa stepped forward. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of speaking to an alien species for the first time in human history. "This is Captain Lisa Hayes of the United Earthship Horizon," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship between our peoples." For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered again, and an alien face appeared. The creature was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated its words into English. "Admiral Kexthal of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. Its voice was cold and emotionless. "We're trespassing in our territory. State your business here, humans." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. The alien knew what they were called. That meant they had been watching Earth probably for a long time. "We're explorers from the planet Earth. We didn't know this was your territory. We're willing to leave peacefully." Admiral Kexthal's face showed what might have been amusement. "Leave? You misunderstand your situation, human. Your species is now under the protection of the Zephyrian Empire. You will return to your world and inform your leaders that they must surrender all military forces and submit to our guidance." The bridge erupted in angry voices. Jake held up his hand for silence, but his own face was hard with anger. "I'm afraid. That's not possible, Admiral. Humans don't surrender to anyone." "Then you will be destroyed," Kexthal said simply. "We have ruled this part of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. We have conquered 47 different species. You're nothing special." The communication ended, and the alien ships began to move toward the horizon. Jake knew they were outgunned and outnumbered, but something deep inside him refused to accept defeat. It was the same feeling his ancestors had felt when facing impossible odds throughout human history. "Battle stations," Jake ordered. "All hands. Prepare for combat." Dr. Emma Rodriguez, the ship's scientist, looked up from her instruments with wide eyes. "Commander, their ships are 3 times our size. Their weapons are more advanced than anything we have. We can't possibly win." "Maybe not," Jake replied, "but we can make them remember us." The first alien ship opened fire, sending bolts of blue energy racing toward the horizon. Alex threw the ship into a desperate evasive maneuver that should have been impossible for a vessel of their size. The energy beams missed by mere meters. "Return fire," Jake shouted. The Horizon's weapons were primitive compared to the alien technology. But they were built by humans who understood that sometimes you had to fight with whatever you had. The missiles struck the lead alien ship, causing minimal damage but sending a clear message. Admiral Kexel's face appeared on the screen again, and for the first time he looked surprised. "Impossible. No species has ever fired on a Zephyrian vessel. After seeing our fleet, You should be begging for mercy." "We don't beg," Jake said coldly, "and we don't surrender." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever experienced. Most species, when faced with superior force, would either flee or submit. The humans did neither. Instead, they fought with a fury that shocked the alien crews. Alex used every trick he had learned in Earth's military academies, plus a few he made up on the spot. He flew the horizon through maneuvers that violated every rule of safe space navigation. Using the ship's smaller size to avoid the aliens' heavy weapons, Lisa had abandoned her diplomatic role and was now coordinating the ship's defenses. She had grown up on stories of human warriors who fought against impossible odds, and she was determined to live up to that legacy. "They're trying to surround us," Alex reported, his hands flying over the controls. 5 ships moving to our starboard, 3 more coming from below. "Then we go through them," Jake decided. "Full power to forward shields, ram the nearest ship." Dr. Rodriguez stared at him in horror. "Commander, that's suicide." "No," Jake said, his eyes fixed on the alien vessels. "That's human." The horizon accelerated directly toward the largest Zephyrian ship. The aliens, expecting the humans to turn away at the last second, held their course. They had never encountered a species willing to destroy itself to harm an enemy. At the last possible moment, Alex pulled the ship up and over the alien vessel, firing every weapon they had into its hull. The Zephyrian ship's shields flared and died, and secondary explosions ripped through its superstructure. "Direct hit," Lisa shouted. "Their command ship is badly damaged, but the victory came at a cost." The Horizon had taken heavy damage, and several crew members were injured. Jake knew they couldn't keep fighting much longer. But he also knew that retreating now would mean the end of human freedom. "Admiral," he said, opening a channel to Kextel, "you wanted to see what humans are capable of. Now you know. We'd rather die fighting than live as slaves." The alien leader's face showed an emotion Jake had never expected to see: fear. "What manner of creatures are you? No civilized species fights like this." "We're not civilized," Jake replied. "We're human. If you want to conquer us, you'll have to kill every last one of us." The Zephyrian fleet began to pull back, their formation breaking as individual captains started to question their orders. They had come expecting an easy victory over a primitive species. Instead, they had found something that challenged everything. They thought they knew about warfare. Commander Alex said urgently, "I'm reading massive energy buildup from their remaining ships. They're preparing to fire everything they have." "Hey." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were battered and exhausted, but their eyes still burned with determination. These people represented the best of humanity, and he was proud to serve with them. "All hands prepare for emergency jump," he ordered. "We're going home, sir." "The jump drive is damaged," Alex reported. "Can't guarantee we'll make it." "Then we'll take that chance," Jake said, "because humans don't give up. Ever." The Horizon disappeared in a flash of light, leaving the Zephyrian fleet alone among the stars. Admiral Kextel stared at the empty space where the human ship had been, trying to understand what had just happened. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had been challenged. And for the first time in his long life, Kextel wondered if they might have met their match. 6 months had passed since the encounter at Kepler 442, and news of the human resistance had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On the massive space station called Nexus Prime, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations gathered. For an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Carl Thompson walked through the station's main corridor, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon him. He was the first human to ever set foot on Nexus Prime, and his presence had caused quite a stir. Some aliens whispered among themselves as he passed. Others simply stared in what appeared to be fascination or fear. Carl had been a diplomat for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He was representing not just Earth's government, but the entire human species before beings who had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Before humans had even invented writing, in the council chamber, he took his seat at a table designed for species much larger than humans. The chair was too big, making him feel like a child among giants. But Carl remembered his instructions from Earth's leadership. Show no weakness, show no fear. Act like humans belonged here. Sage Veltar of the Trilaxian Collective was the first to speak. The Trilaxians were tall, graceful beings with silver skin and 3 eyes. They had been known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and philosophers for over 2,000 years. Ambassador Thompson Veltar said, his voice carrying the musical tone that all Trilaxians possessed, "We have received disturbing reports. About your species, our border worlds report that human traders have begun appearing in our territory. They are always armed and seem ready for violence at any moment." Carl nodded calmly. It's true that humans prefer to be prepared for any situation. "We've learned from experience that the galaxy can be a dangerous place. But why do your people seem to enjoy conflict?" asked Council Leader Quinder of the Ethereal Dominion. The Ethereals were beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form centuries ago. Other species fight only when necessary. People appear to seek out dangerous situations. Before Carl could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed, and a voice spoke over the communication system in the common galactic language. "Ach! All ships. This is Nexus Prime Control? We have reports of Corvin raiders attacking civilian vessels in Sector 7. Any available ships, please respond?" Carl felt his heart sink. The Corvins were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless pirates who preyed on peaceful traders. They were large, powerful beings with natural armor and a reputation for showing no mercy to their victims. "The Corvins again," sighed Veltar. "They have been growing bolder lately. I fear there is little we can do for the poor souls they have captured." "Why not?" Carl asked, genuinely confused. "The Corvins are too violent," explained Quinder. "They kill anyone who opposes them. It is better to let them take what they want and hope they release their prisoners." Carl stood up from his oversized chair. "Excuse me, but I need to make a communication." Before anyone could respond, he activated his personal communicator and spoke in English. "This is Ambassador Thompson to any human vessels in the area. We have civilians under attack by pirates in Sector 7. Can anyone respond?" The answer came immediately. "This is Captain Ryan Kelly of the UES Phoenix. We're 20 minutes out from Sector 7. We'll handle it." The alien representatives looked at each other in confusion. Veltar spoke first. "Ambassador, surely you're not suggesting your people attack the Corvins directly? That would be suicide?" "We'll see," Carl replied, settling back into his chair with a slight smile. Meanwhile, in Sector 7, Captain Ryan Kelly studied the tactical display. On his ship's bridge, the Phoenix was a small exploration vessel with a crew of only 30 humans, but it was armed and ready for trouble. Ryan had spent 10 years in Earth's Space Navy before joining the Exploration Service, and he had never backed down from a fight. "What do we have, Sophie?" he asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sophie Martinez. Sophie was studying the sensor readings with the intensity of a predator stalking prey. She had grown up in the rough neighborhoods of New Angeles, and she understood violence in a way that most species could never comprehend. 3 Corvin ships, Captain. They've disabled an Altarian transport and are boarding it. The Altarians are pacifists, so they won't fight back. Ryan felt anger building in his chest. The Altarians were a gentle species known for their art and music. The thought of them being terrorized by pirates made his blood boil. "Time to show these raiders what humans think of bullies," he said. "All hands, battle stations. Sophie, prepare boarding parties." "Sir, the Corvins are twice our size and 3 times as strong," warned Dr. Nathan Brooks, the ship's cultural analyst. "And they're experienced fighters." "So are we," Ryan replied. Coldly. "The difference is, we fight for something more than profit." The Phoenix dropped out of hyperspace directly between the Corvin ships and their victim. The pirates, surprised by the sudden appearance of the unknown vessel, demanded that the humans leave immediately or face destruction. Ryan's response was to open fire with every weapon his ship possessed. The battle was brief but intense. The Phoenix was smaller and faster than the Corvin vessels, and Ryan used these advantages to the fullest. But what really shocked the pirates was the human willingness to take risks that no sane species would consider. When one Corvan ship tried to use the captured transport as a shield, Ryan ordered his crew to fire anyway, trusting in their precision. To avoid hitting the civilians, when another pirate vessel tried to ram the Phoenix, Ryan met the attack head-on, playing a deadly game of chicken that the Corvan captain lost when his nerve broke first. "They're insane," transmitted one of the Corvan captains to his companions. "These humans fight like they don't care if they die." "We care," Ryan replied over the open channel. "We just care more about stopping you." The turning point came when Sophie led a boarding party onto the disabled transport. The Corvans had been expecting the usual response from civilized species. Negotiations, attempts at peaceful resolution, maybe a token rescue effort that would be easily defeated. Instead, they found themselves facing humans who fought with a fury that shocked even these veteran pirates. Sophie and her team moved through the transport like a force of nature, using tactics that violated every civilized rule of engagement. "They're targeting our weapons first, then our communications," reported one panicking Corvan warrior. "They're not trying to capture us or drive us off. They're trying to make sure we can never do this again." Dr. Brooks, monitoring the battle from the Phoenix, made careful notes about the psychological effect of human combat methods on the enemy. He observed that while other species fought to achieve specific objectives, humans seemed to fight too. Completely destroy their opponent's ability to cause harm. The Corvan raiders, faced with an enemy that fought with a combination of tactical skill and primal rage, made a decision that would have been unthinkable just hours before. They retreated. "This isn't over, humans," transmitted the lead Corvan captain as his ships prepared to jump to hyperspace. "We'll remember this." "Good," Ryan replied. "Sure you tell all your friends what happens when you attack innocent people in human space." Back on Nexus Prime, the alien representatives watched in stunned silence as the battle reports came in. The humans had not only defeated the Corvans, but had done so in a way that defied every principle of civilized warfare. "How is this possible?" whispered Veltar. "The Corvans are some of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They've never been defeated by such a small force." Carl Thompson looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens. For the first time since arriving, he felt that he had their complete attention. "You want to understand humans?" said quietly. "Then understand this. We don't fight because we have to. We don't fight because it's profitable. We fight because we believe some things are worth fighting for." "But the risks," protested Quindor. "Your people could have been killed. The civilians could have been harmed in the crossfire." Yes, Carl agreed. "But doing nothing would have guaranteed that innocent people suffered. We chose to take the risk because we couldn't live with ourselves if we didn't try." The rescued Altarian transport limped into Nexus Prime several hours later. The survivors were physically unharmed, but their large, gentle eyes showed a mixture of gratitude and fear as they spoke to the council. "The humans saved us," said their captain, an elderly Altarian named Symphon. "But the way they fought, it was like watching violence itself take physical form. They seemed to become more dangerous the more desperate the situation became." "And when it was over?" asked Veltar. "They offered us medical aid and escort protection," Symphon replied. "They were kind and gentle, as if the warriors we had just seen were completely different people. We don't understand how they can change so quickly from peaceful to violent and back again." Carl stood up once more, feeling the weight of representing his entire species. "That's what you need to understand about humans. We can be your greatest allies or your worst enemies. The choice is yours to make." As the council session ended and the representatives dispersed, whispered conversations echoed. Throughout Nexus Prime, General Zarkath of the Draconian Hegemony stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the green and blue planet of New Denver grow larger on the main screen. The Draconians had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for over 1,000 years, and their military might was legendary. No species had ever successfully resisted their conquest. "These humans need to learn their place," Zarkath said to his aide, Commander Velmoth. "The Zephyrians were weak, and the Corvans are nothing but pirates. We will show the galaxy how a real military force deals with these upstart creatures." Velmoth nodded, but privately he wondered if the general was underestimating their enemy. The reports from other encounters with humans had been troubling. Still, the Draconian fleet surrounding New Denver was massive. Over 200 ships carrying 50,000 elite warriors. It should be more than enough to crush any resistance. On the surface of New Denver, Colonel Ben Foster stood in the colony's command bunker, studying the tactical displays. The human settlement was home to 2 million civilians and only 5,000 military personnel. Odds were hopeless by any reasonable measure. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Draconian fleet," reported his communications officer. "Put it through," Ben said, his face grim. General Zarkoth's reptilian features filled the screen. The Draconian leader was over 8 feet tall, with scales that gleamed like polished metal and eyes that glowed with an inner fire. "I am General Zarkoth of the Draconian hegemony," the alien announced. "You will surrender your colony immediately. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your settlement and the execution of your leaders." Ben looked at the alien general with steady eyes. "I'm Colonel Ben Foster, commander of New Denver's Defense Forces. We reject your demand. This is human territory, and we will defend it." Zarkotha's eyes narrowed. "You have 1 hour to reconsider. After that, we will demonstrate why the Draconian military has never been defeated." The transmission ended, and Ben turned to his staff. "You heard him? We have 1 hour to prepare for the fight of our lives." Sergeant Katie Williams was all ready. Checking her equipment, she had grown up on New Denver and knew every street, every building, every tunnel in the colony. More importantly, she knew how to fight dirty. "Colonel, what are our orders?" she asked. "Standard doctrine goes out the window," Ben replied. "We're not fighting a conventional war. We're fighting for survival. That means we use every trick, every advantage, every weapon we can find." The Draconian attack began exactly 1 hour later. Their ships descended from orbit in perfect formation, their weapon systems lighting up the sky with bolts of energy. The colony's shields held for the first few minutes, and began to fail under the massive bombardment. But the humans had not been idle during that hour. As the Draconian ground forces landed, they found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Major Tony Clark had spent the time organizing the civilian population. Unlike other species, where military and civilian roles were clearly separated, humans blurred these lines completely. Shop owners became ammunition suppliers. Teachers became intelligence gatherers. Children became message runners. "Remember," Tony told a group of civilian volunteers, "you're not soldiers, but you're still part of this fight. Every piece of information you gather, every supply cache you protect, every Draconian you slow down or mislead helps our military forces." The Draconians expected to face organized military resistance at key strategic points. Instead, they found themselves fighting an entire population that refused to be conquered. Katie led her squad through the colony's underground tunnel system, emerging behind enemy lines to strike at supply convoys and communication centers. Draconians had superior weapons and armor, but they had never faced an enemy that attacked from unexpected directions and then disappeared before they could respond. "Their tactics make no sense," complained Commander Velmoth to General Zarkoth. "They attack civilian targets to force us to respond, then ambush our response teams. They're using our own protocols against us." Zarkoth studied the tactical reports with growing frustration. The Draconians had conquered dozens of worlds using the same methods. Overwhelming force, psychological pressure, and the threat of total destruction had always been enough to break enemy resistance. But the humans seemed to become more determined as the situation grew more desperate. "Increase the bombardment," he ordered. "Target their government buildings and military installations. Once their leadership is eliminated, the population will surrender." But when the Draconian ships targeted the colony's administration center, they found it empty. The humans had evacuated all their important personnel and equipment, leaving only empty buildings behind. "Sir, we're not hitting anything vital," reported his tactical officer. "It's like they abandoned all their fixed positions." Dr. Helen Park was being held prisoner aboard the Draconian flagship, having been captured during the initial assault. As the colony's chief psychologist, she was considered a valuable source of intelligence about human behavior. But as she watched the Draconian command staff she realized they were the ones breaking down. "You don't understand," she told General Zarkath during one of her interrogations. "You're fighting us like we're any other species." "But we're not." "We don't think like you do," explained Zarkoth demanded. "Other species fight to achieve objectives," Helen said calmly. "Territory, resources, political goals. But humans fight for survival. And when we're fighting for survival, we'll do anything to win." The general dismissed her words as psychological warfare, but Helen could see the doubt in his eyes. The draconian military had rules, traditions, concepts of honor that limited their actions. Humans, when pushed to the brink, had no such limitations. The turning point came when the Draconians launched a massive assault on the colony's central district. They committed their best troops and heaviest weapons, expecting to crush the human resistance once and for all. Colonel Ben Foster watched the enemy advance from his hidden command post. The Draconians were moving in perfect formation, following their standard tactical doctrine. It was exactly what he had been hoping for. "Are your people in position?" he asked over the communication system. "Ready, sir," came the reply from Sergeant Williams. She was crouched in a maintenance tunnel directly beneath the advancing Draconian column. "All charges are set. Tony, what's the status on the civilian evacuation?" "Complete, Sir Major Clark." Reported, "Everyone is clear of the blast zone." Ben took a deep breath. What he was about to do would shock the galaxy, but it was the only way to save his people. "All units, prepare for Operation Scorched Earth. Detonate all charges in 30 seconds. The Draconians never saw it coming. The humans had spent the entire battle secretly placing explosives throughout the colony, not just in military installations, but in every building, every street, every tunnel system. As the enemy forces moved into the central district, the entire area erupted in a series of massive explosions. The blast was visible from orbit. Nearly a quarter of the colony simply vanished in a fireball that destroyed thousands of Draconian troops and dozens of their vehicles. The surviving enemy forces stood in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Whispered Commander Velmuth. "They destroyed their own colony. Why would they do such a thing?" General Zarkov stared at the smoking crater where the colony's heart had been. In 1,000 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like it. "They're not fighting to hold territory," he realized. "They're fighting to deny it to us." But the humans weren't finished. As the Draconian forces tried to regroup, they found themselves under attack from every direction. The explosion had been a signal, and now human forces that had been hiding throughout the colony emerged to strike at the confused and demoralized enemy. They turned their entire settlement into a trap, reported a Draconian field commander. "We're not fighting an army. We're fighting the entire population, and they're willing to sacrifice everything to stop us." The battle for New Denver lasted 3 more days. The Draconians, despite their superior numbers and technology, found themselves slowly pushed back. Every building they captured was booby-trapped. Every street they controlled was under constant sniper fire. Every supply convoy they sent was ambushed by civilians who had been transformed into guerrilla fighters. On the 4th day, General Zarkov made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He ordered a full withdrawal. "We're leaving," he announced to his shocked staff. "Prepare the fleet for departure." "Sir, we have them outnumbered 10-1, protested Velmuth. "We can still win this." "At what cost?" Zarkov replied. "We've lost 15,000 troops trying to conquer a single human colony. If we continue, we'll lose the entire fleet. And for what? Burned-out wasteland that they'll probably destroy completely rather than let us have it." As the Draconian ships lifted off from New Denver's surface, the surviving human defenders watched from their hiding places. They had won, but the victory had come at a terrible price. Nearly half the colony was in ruins, and thousands of civilians had been killed or wounded. Colonel Ben Foster stood in what remained of the colony's main square, looking at the devastation around him. The great council chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such tension. Representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy had gathered for an emergency session that would determine the future of human-alien relations. The air itself seemed to vibrate with fear and uncertainty as dozens of species tried to decide what to do about the human problem. President Amanda Foster sat at the defendants' table, feeling the weight of countless alien eyes upon her. She had been Earth's leader for only 2 years. But the events at New Denver had thrust her into the most important diplomatic crisis in human history. Behind her sat a small delegation of human advisors, vastly outnumbered by the hundreds of aliens in the chamber. Council leader Quinder of the Ethereal Dominion called the session to order. His energy form flickered with patterns that indicated deep concern. We are here to address the growing threat posed by the human species to galactic stability and peace. Threat. Amanda stood up, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. We have only defended ourselves when attacked. We have never initiated aggression against any peaceful civilization. But your methods of defense are the problem, said Sage Veltar of the Trilaxian Collective. His 3 eyes focused on Amanda with what appeared to be sadness. Your species fights in ways that violate every principle of civilized warfare. Magistrate Zorthok of the Crystalline Syndicate activated a holographic display that showed footage from the Battle of New Denver. Images were disturbing even to humans who had lived through the conflict. Your people destroyed their own colony rather than allow it to be occupied. This is not the behavior of a rational species. Dr. Greg Adams, Earth's chief expert on alien psychology, requested permission to speak. Amanda nodded, and the elderly scientist stood up slowly. He had spent his entire career studying how different species thought and behaved, and he understood better than anyone why the aliens were so frightened. Honored representatives, Greg began, you fear us because you don't understand us. But if you'll allow me to explain, I can help you see why humans behave the way we do. Proceed, said Quindor, his energy patterns showing cautious interest. Every species in this chamber evolved on worlds that were relatively safe and stable. Greg continued. Your planets had few natural predators, predictable weather patterns, and abundant resources. But Earth was different. Our world was a place where only the strongest, smartest, and most determined creatures could survive. The chamber fell silent as Greg activated his own display, showing images of Earth's history. Massive storms, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, and countless predators filled the screen. For millions of years, our ancestors faced constant threats. We evolved not just intelligence, but the ability to fight against impossible odds and win. We learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to be willing to lose everything in order to deny victory to your enemies. But Shirley interrupted. Representative Hicksnall of the Aquatic Federation Evolution also teaches cooperation and peaceful coexistence. It does, Greg agreed. But it also teaches us that peace is only possible when potential aggressors understand the cost of violence. Other species submit when faced with superior force because submission means survival. For humans, submission often meant extinction. So we evolved to fight rather than surrender, even when fighting seemed hopeless. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Johnson stood to address the council. She was wearing her dress uniform, and every decoration on her chest represented a battle where humans had fought against overwhelming odds. If I may add to Dr. Adams' explanation, she said, human military doctrine is based on a simple principle. We fight not just to win individual battles, but to ensure that future battles become unnecessary. Explain, demanded General Crix of the Armored Caste, a species known for their own military prowess. When we destroyed New Denver, we weren't just stopping the draconian invasion, Sarah continued. We were sending a message to every potential aggressor in the galaxy. Attack humans, and even if you win, the cost will be so high that you'll never want to try again. The chamber erupted in angry voices as dozens of representatives tried to speak at once. Quinder called for order, but the fear and confusion were too strong to contain easily. Judge Victoria Torres, Earth's top legal expert, waited for the noise to die down before standing. Honored representatives, I understand your concerns, but I ask you to consider the alternative. What would happen if you restricted human military capabilities? The galaxy would be safer, declared Ambassador Yilseth of the Peaceful Unity. A confederation of species that had renounced all forms of violence. Would it? Victoria challenged. Let me show you something. She activated a new display that showed star charts marking various conflict zones throughout the galaxy. 6 months since humans began exploring this region of space, pirate attacks have decreased by 70%. Slave raids have stopped completely in systems where human ships patrol. 3 separate wars between minor species have ended because both sides feared human intervention. The statistics were undeniable, and several representatives shifted uncomfortably. In their seats, Victoria continued, humans don't just fight our own battles. We fight for anyone who can't fight for themselves. Yes, our methods are harsh. Yes, we're willing to accept casualties that other species consider unthinkable. But we're also the only species that consistently stands up to bullies and tyrants. Texvara of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his seat. He was one of the few aliens in the chamber who had actually fought against humans, and his words carried special weight. The human ambassador speaks truly. Before their arrival, the Corvan pirates raided our shipping lanes with impunity. We considered it the cost of doing business. Now they avoid any system where humans might be present, but at what cost? Asked Veltar. Your methods inspire fear, yes, but they also inspire hatred. How long before other species unite against you out of terror? Amanda stood up again, knowing that this was the crucial moment. Everything she said now would determine whether humans would be accepted as members of the galactic community or branded as a threat to be eliminated. Sage Veltar raises an important point, she said. Fear is not a foundation for lasting peace, but neither is weakness. The galaxy has been stable for thousands of years, because the strong have preyed upon the weak, while the majority looked the other way. We offer a different path. What path is that? Asked Quendor. A galaxy where aggression has consequences, Amanda replied. Where peaceful species don't have to live in fear of pirates and conquerors, where conflicts are resolved quickly and decisively instead of dragging on for generations. And if we refuse to accept your presence? Asked High Magistrate Zorthok. What then? The chamber fell silent, waiting for Amanda's response. She looked around at the hundreds of alien faces, seeing fear, curiosity, anger, and hope reflected in their various features. Then you'll continue to live in a galaxy where might makes right, she said quietly. Where the Corvans and the Draconians and others like them can terrorize peaceful civilizations with impunity. Where the strong prey upon the weak because no one is strong enough or brave enough to stop them. Dr. Adams stood up again. If I may add one final observation, he said. You're debating whether to accept humans as members of your galactic community, but you're missing the real question, which is, asked Quinder, whether you want us as your allies or your enemies, because like it or not, we're here. We're not going away. And we're not going to change our fundamental nature because it makes you uncomfortable. The implications of his words hung heavy in the chamber. Several representatives began speaking quietly among themselves. Amanda could see the political calculations happening in real time. Finally, Council Leader Quindar called for order. This council will recess for deliberation. We will reconvene in 12 hours to vote on a resolution regarding human status in the galactic community. As the session ended and the various delegations filed out of the chamber, Amanda felt a mixture of hope and dread. The next 12 hours would determine whether humanity would find its place among the stars as protectors or as pariahs. Judge Torres approached her as they prepared to leave. Do you think we convinced them? Amanda looked back at the empty chamber where humanity's fate had been debated. I think we scared them. Whether that fear will make them our allies or our enemies remains to be seen. Dr. Adams joined them, his expression thoughtful. Fear isn't always a bad thing, he said. Sometimes it's the beginning of respect. Respect is the foundation of real peace. As the human delegation returned to their quarters to wait for the council's decision, none of them knew that the galaxy was about to face a threat that would make their debate seem trivial. In the dark spaces between the stars, something ancient and hungry was stirring, and it was moving toward their galaxy with deadly purpose. The time for diplomatic discussions was almost over. Soon the galaxy would need humanity's unique brand of warfare more than anyone could imagine. The emergency alarm screaming through Nexus Prime interrupted the Galactic Council's deliberations about humanity's future. Council leader Quinder's energy form flickered with alarm. Patterns as urgent reports flooded the communication systems from across the galaxy. "What is happening?" demanded High Magistrate Zorthok, his crystalline form resonating with confusion. The answer came from the station's defense coordinator, trembling Altarian named Symphon. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Something is coming through from extragalactic space." President Amanda Foster felt her blood turn cold as the tactical displays showed the incoming threat. Hundreds of massive ships, each one larger than anything in the known galaxy, were pouring through dimensional rifts like a dark tide of destruction. Admiral Jack Cooper, Earth's top military commander, had arrived on Nexus Prime just hours before to support the diplomatic mission. Now he found himself staring at sensor readings that defied comprehension. "How many ships are we looking at?" "Over 3,000 confirmed," reported the station's tactical officer. "And more are arriving every minute." Dr. Patricia Moore, Earth's leading expert on xenobiology, was studying the energy signatures with growing horror. "These readings don't match any known technology. Whatever these things are, they're not from our galaxy." The main viewing screen flickered to life, showing the approaching fleet. The ships were dark, organic-looking things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with a coordination that spoke of a single controlling intelligence. "We are the Harvester." "Swarm," came a voice that seemed to speak directly into every mind in the chamber. "We have consumed 47 galaxies. Your galaxy will be the 48th. Resistance is meaningless. Surrender is meaningless. You exist only to feed us." The chamber erupted in panic as representatives from dozens of species tried to process this impossible threat. The Harvesters were everything the galaxy's worst nightmares had warned about, an enemy that could not be reasoned with, could not be bribed, and could not be defeated through conventional means. "How long do we have?" Musical voice, now harsh with fear. "Their advanced scouts will reach the outer systems in 6 hours, reported the tactical officer. "The main fleet will arrive in 72 hours. Amanda looked around the chamber at the terrified alien faces. For months, these beings had debated whether humans were too dangerous to be allowed into galactic society. Now, they were about to discover what real danger looked like. "Council Leader Quindor," she said, standing up with calm determination, "I request immediate command authority over all galactic defense forces." The chamber fell silent except for the continuing alarm signals. Every alien representative stared at her as if she had lost her mind. "Do you want us to put a human in charge of our military forces?" asked General Crix of the armored caste. "After everything we've discussed about your violent tendencies?" "Our violent tendencies are exactly what you need right now," Amanda replied coldly. "You've spent thousands of years living in a civilized galaxy where conflicts could be resolved through negotiation and political pressure. But these Harvesters aren't interested in your diplomacy. They're here to eat you." Admiral Cooper stepped forward, his uniform bearing decorations from conflicts across human space. "With respect to all present, your military forces aren't prepared. For this kind of enemy, your tactics are designed for fighting other civilized species who follow rules and have objectives you can understand. The Harvesters follow no rules except consumption. And you think you can stop them?" asked Admiral Texvera of the Zephyrian Empire. "I think we can try," Jack replied. "And unlike every other species in this chamber, humans have experienced fighting enemies that want to completely destroy us." "Ah?" First reports from the outer systems began arriving within hours. The Harvester advanced scouts had reached the frontier worlds, and the results were horrifying. Entire planets were being stripped of all organic matter, their populations consumed by creatures that seemed to exist only to feed and reproduce. "The Peluvian system is gone," reported a shaking communications officer. "All 7 billion inhabitants consumed in less than 2 hours." Captain Michelle Lee was already mobilizing the human fleet when the reports came in. Unlike the other species, carefully organized military hierarchies, human forces had been designed for rapid deployment and maximum flexibility. While alien commanders were still requesting permission to move their ships, human vessels were already racing toward the threatened systems. "This is Captain Lee to all human vessels," she transmitted as her ship, The UES Defiance led a squadron toward the advancing enemy. We're about to face something that wants to eat every living thing in the galaxy. Standard rules of engagement are suspended. Use whatever works. Commander Steve Davis received the transmission aboard his destroyer, the UES Relentless. He had fought pirates and rogue nations, but nothing had prepared him for an enemy that viewed all organic life as food. Understood, Captain. We're right. Behind you, the first engagement between human forces and Harvester scouts took place in the Tau Ceti system. Captain Lee watched in horror as the enemy ships simply absorbed her missiles and energy weapons, using the consumed matter to grow larger and more powerful. Conventional weapons are useless, she reported back to Admiral Cooper. Now, they're literally eating our attacks and getting stronger. Then we stop being conventional, Jack replied grimly. All ships prepare to implement Protocol Scorched Earth. Protocol Scorched Earth was a human military doctrine that other species considered insane. It involved using any means necessary to deny resources to the enemy, including the deliberate destruction of friendly infrastructure and the sacrifice of military assets to achieve tactical objectives. Dr. Moore, monitoring the battle from Nexus Prime, made careful notes about human behavior under extreme stress. They're not just fighting the Harvesters, she observed to her alien colleagues. They're adapting their tactics in real time, using methods that would never occur to other species. When Captain Lee realized that her weapons were feeding the enemy, she made a decision that shocked even her own crew. All ships, ramming speed. Target the largest Harvester vessel. We're going to overload our reactor cores and take as many of them with us as possible. Captain, that's suicide, protested her tactical officer. No, Michelle replied, her eyes fixed on the approaching enemy ships. That's human, the sacrifice. Of the human squadron destroyed 3 Harvester vessels. But more importantly, it provided crucial intelligence about enemy capabilities. The Harvesters could absorb energy and matter, but they were vulnerable to massive explosive damage that overwhelmed their absorption abilities. They can be hurt, Admiral Cooper announced to the assembled Galactic Defense Forces. But it requires tactics that none of you are prepared to use. What do you mean? Asked Council Leader Quindor. You have to be willing to become like them, Jack explained. You have to be willing to sacrifice everything, ships, planets, entire star systems, to deny them what they need to survive. Full horror of Jack's strategy became clear as human forces began implementing it across the galaxy. When Harvester fleets approached populated systems, human commanders didn't just evacuate the civilians, they destroyed the planets themselves, turning entire worlds into radioactive wastelands that the Harvesters couldn't consume. You're committing genocide against your own species, accused Sage Veltar, watching in horror as humans systematically destroyed their own colonies rather than let them fall to the enemy. We're committing survival, Commander Davis replied from his ship as he prepared to detonate the antimatter charges that would destroy the human industrial complex on Kepler 438b. Every resource we deny them is a resource they can't use to consume someone else. The strategy worked, but at a cost that horrified the galaxy's other inhabitants. Humans were not just fighting the Harvesters, they were matching their ruthlessness, their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Dr. Moore documented the psychological changes in human forces as the war progressed. Extended combat against an extinction-level threat isn't breaking their morale, she reported. It's revealing something that was always there, a capacity for violence that goes beyond anything we've seen before. The turning point came when humans began adopting Harvester biotechnology against its creators. Captain Lee, having survived her earlier suicide mission in an escape pod, led a new kind of warfare that combined human tactical innovation with captured enemy weapons. If they want to play by biological rules, we'll show them what Earth's apex predators can do, she announced, as her biomodified ships tore through Harvester formations using weapons that the enemy couldn't absorb because they were made from Harvester tissue itself. The final battle took place at the galaxy's core, where the Harvester Queen ship had established itself to coordinate the consumption of entire star systems. Admiral Cooper led the combined galactic fleet in an assault that would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. All ships, this is Admiral Cooper, he transmitted as the human-led fleet, approached the massive enemy vessel. We're not just fighting for our own species anymore. We're fighting for the right of life to exist in this galaxy.